everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to work on this pendant. And this pendant uses some of the beads from Eureka Crystal Beads Crystal Waters collection. So I think it's still available and all the beads will be listed individually. Or, raid your stash or pick any colors that you love. But we'll work on this and we have different sort of configurations that I'll show you. And also here's the bracelet. If you haven't seen the bracelet, this is a video, I think the last video we did, so I'll link this in the description box. Okay, without further delay, let's get started. Okay, I'm going to pop through the materials really quickly. Everything is in the description box below the video, so sizes, shapes, colors, amounts of beads you need for the pendant, all the any extra beads that I can find links for, I'll put in, or extra, embellishments. If I can find them, I'll put a link in the description box below the video, so don't forget to to look in that description box if you want the exact amounts that you need for everything. So I'll just run through them quickly. So crescent beads, 8 demi rounds, 8mm chaton, super duo, mini duo, delica or treasure, 11 toho, 15 miyuki, 3mm bugle beads. I've got the 3x2mm Chinese crystal rondelles. If you want to do the drop here, you'll need the 10x14mm teardrop that's in the collection, and you'll need a couple of delicas. I alternated my delicas, so you can use any colors. I just added a gold one. You could do the one from the collection, and then I did a little 11 toho around it. And then here, if you want to do this chain, you'll need a whole bunch of Miyuki 11s. If you want to do the pin, then you'll need one of these filigrees and a pin back. If you want to use a ribbon, I have this pretty hand-dyed silk ribbon, and I've got some little, spacers on either side. You can really find those anywhere. This is just, a component that I had in my stash, and I glued with E6000 a cabochon, 10mm cabochon in there. So, you can sort of play with all that. All right, did I say 6-pound fire line and different size needles in case you need to change your needle size. Okay, so let's get started. So thread your needle with about 3 feet of thread, put on a stop bead, and leave enough of a tail to sew in. So I picked up and dropped down to my stop bead 3 crescent beads, and I've picked up one, so the curve, the rounded part is here, and then the next one, it's curved inward here, and then rounded here. So that, make sure you put them on exactly how I did, and then you're going to pick up a demi-round 4mm pearl and a demi-round. Just going to repeat that so you have 4 groups of crescent beads, demi-round, pearl demi-round. I'm going to sew these into a circle by sewing through those first 3 crescent beads. Get the needle in there like that, and then I'm just going to sew through all the beads again to make a circle. Okay, so I've come all the way around, and your crescent beads might start flipping around. You want to make sure they're on the way you originally put them on. So remember, the sort of rounded part here, dented part here, rounded part here. So you want to make sure they're all sitting that way. And your working thread will be exiting one of the crescent beads. So you've come all the way around reinforced, and you'll be exiting the bottom hole of one of the crescent beads. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So now, before we go on, you're exiting the bottom hole of a crescent bead. Before we go on, I just want you to take that center crescent bead and do one of those. So you're just pulling it forward so that it is now the same, all sides are the same, and you've got the crescent beads, the middle bead of each group of 3 coming towards the center of the unit. So I've laid it on my finger, and I want to get this interior kind of stabilize a little bit so it's just not flopping all over the place. So exiting here, this bottom hole of this crescent, I'm just going to sew through the next demi-round, 4mm pearl demi-round, and the first 2 crescent beads. So I'll be exiting that middle crescent bead right there. So just like that. And so you're coming through the top hole of this one that you pushed in the center. I'm just going to go through the bottom hole of that same bead. Just give it a pull. So this is what I have so far. Pick up a 15-0, a demi round and a 15-0, and I'm going to sew through the bottom hole of the next one. You know, the ones that I pushed into the center. There it is. I'll do that again. 15-0, demi 15-0. Through the next one. Like that. Just hold it with your finger so it's starting to solidify a little bit. And then just do that 2 more times. So I've reinforced around and I'm coming through the last 15-0, demi 15-0, and then I came through the bottom hole of this crescent bead. So I'm going to sew through the top hole of that crescent bead and then the bottom hole of the next one. So I'm just working my way to the outside again. And give that a pull, and now it's feeling much more secure. So get that done and then we'll continue. This is what I have so far. So I'm exiting the bottom hole of this crescent bead. I'm going to pick up 3 of my mini duos, and I'm just going to skip over everything and sew through the bottom hole of the next crescent bead, the top hole of that middle one, and the bottom hole of the next one. I'm just going to place 3 of the mini duos, kind of like that. Do it one more time together. 3 of my minis, exiting here, skipping over these. I'm going to sew through, exiting the crescent beads, skipping over these center beads, and then sewing through the next crescent, 3 crescent beads, like that. So do that 2 more times. Down to my last 3 minis, exiting this crescent bead, skipping over these beads here, sewing through the next crescent, next 3 crescent beads, like that. If you need to change your needle size, you can do that. So this is what it looks like. This is where we are so far. We're exiting this crescent bead. I'm going to sew through the next mini duo and then right through that center mini duo. And notice how I'm pushing those into the center as well. So I push that middle one sort of into the center. So this is where I'm going to be exiting, right here. Move my thumb like that. So the bottom hole of this mini, I'm going to go through the top hole of that mini duo. Pick up 5 of my 15-0s, and I'm going to sew through the top hole of the next mini duo. I'm going to do that all the way around. 5 15-0s through the top hole of the next mini duo. So I can do that 2 more times. And on my last 5 15-0s, coming through the top hole of the next mini duo, like that. And you can sew up the first 3 of the 15-0s that you just put on. Then we'll put our stone in. So don't do it super tight yet. Put your stone in first, like that. And then you can kind of give it a little pull. It's not going to stay yet. So just, you know, just hold it in there. So you're exiting that 3rd 15-0 of the group of 5. Step, I'm going to pick up a 15-0, a bugle bead, and a 15-0. I'm just going to go to the middle bead, that number 3 of the next group of 5. Put that in. It's a little wonky right now, but we'll get it all straightened out. 15-0, bugle bead, and a 15-0. So for the 3rd bead of the next group of 5. Okay, you're going to do that 2 more times. Last 15-0, bugle bead 15-0, sewing through that original one we started with, so bead number 3 of the next group of 5, like that. It's loose right now, but we'll get there. So now you're just going to reinforce this all the way around. So when I'm reinforcing, I'm sewing through the 15-0 bugle bead 15-0. I'm going to skip that little connection bead in the center. It's just going to pull it in, and then I'm going to go through the 15-0 bugle bead 15-0. So I see here, and I'm going to skip this guy and sew through the 15-0 bugle bead 15-0. And I'm going to do that all the way around till it's nice and snug. This is what I have so far. I've reinforced and it's nice and snug now. So I'm exiting, you know, went through the 15-0 bugle bead 15-0. Now I'm actually going to sew through that little corner bead right here See that? And then I'm going to sew through these two, the bottom hole of that mini duo, and then the next two 15-0s right there. So this is where you'll be exiting. You'll be right in front of these guys, and you'll be exiting this 15-0 right here. This is where we are so far. We're exiting those two 15-0s on the side of the mini duo. Now I'm going to pick up 3 delicas. Now you have the pink ones in the collection, but I put them in and you really can't see what I'm doing, so I'm just going to pick up 3 in sort of this turquoise color. So exiting right here, I'm just going to sew through the two 15-0s before that mini duo and the mini duo, and that's going to place those right there. Then I'm going to sew through the two 15-0s after that mini duo, like that. And I'm going to put 3 more of my delicas on. So exiting right here, just going to sew through these 2 and the mini duo. Oops. Right here, these 2 and the mini duo. So that places those on. So you're just going to do that all the way around. Putting on my last 3 delicas or treasures. So, you know, I've come through the mini duo and the beads after the mini duo. Here are my 3 cylinder beads. I'm going to sew through these 2 and then the mini duo, like that. So that's going to place all 4 of my embellishments on, and just want to straighten these out a little bit. Pop that little one up there. And if you like, you can keep going around. So I'll do it now and see if you want to do this. So I'm exiting the mini duo, and I'm going to sew through the next 2 15-0s and 1 of the cylinder beads, and I'm going to skip the middle one and sew through the next one, so right there, and then I'm going to work my way to the next group. So it's through the 2 15-0s, the mini duo, and the next 2 15-0s. And when I do that, you see how it pops? If I pull, it's going to pop that center delica or cylinder bead, pop it right out. I mean, they look fine without doing that, but you can do that. So here I'm just going to work my way through to the next group of 3 cylinder beads. Just going to sew through the first one, going to skip that second one, that middle one, and I'm going to sew down through the next one. And when I pull, it's going to see how it just gives it a bit of a point. So you can do that all the way around. Coming down to the end, I'm going to just sew. I've come around. I've sewn through that first cylinder bead, skipping the middle one. I'm going to sew through the next one, and then the 2 15-0s, and I just want to get the mini duo. So my needle is going through everything, so I want to just, maybe I'll just do this. See what I'll do. Go like that. And then I'll go through the mini duo. And sometimes that makes all the difference in getting your needle through. So there we go. So I'm exiting the bottom hole of that mini duo. I'm going to sew through the top hole of that mini duo and the bottom hole of the next one, and then through the top hole, just like that. So now I'm set up to put some more beads on. So we're exiting the top hole of this mini duo. I'm going to pick up a super duo. I'm going to sew through the top hole of the next mini duo. Just like that. I'm going to pick up 2 of my demi rounds. I'm going to sew through that crescent bead. So just like that. And then I'm going to pick up an 11-0. This is the Toho that's in the collection. I'm going to sew through the next crescent bead. I'm going to pick up 2 of my demi rounds. I'm going to sew through the next mini duo. I'm going to pick up my super duo and sew through the next mini duo, and you're just going to do that all the way around. Coming down to my last two of my demi rounds, I'm going to sew through the top hole of this mini duo and the bottom hole of the super duo. I'm going to advance my needle, so I'm exiting the bottom hole of that super duo. I'm just going to advance my needle to the next super duo, just so that what we just put on is nice and snug. So I'm just going through all the beads, so through the mini, the two demis, the crescent bead, the 11-0, the crescent bead, the two demis, the next mini, and the next super duo. And that kind of straightens, kind of tightens everything up. And then I'm going to reverse direction and come to the top hole of the super duo. Okay, next up I'm going to pick up a 15-0, the rondelle and a 15-0, exiting the top hole of this super duo. I'm going to skip over this guy. I'm going to sew through that second demi round, the 11-0, and the second and the first demi round of the next group. That's going to go on like so, and I'm going to sew through this demi round right here. Okay? And then I'm going to pick up a 15-0, the rondelle, and a 15-0. I'm going to sew through the top hole of the next super duo, 15-0, rondelle, 15-0. I'm going to sew through this demi, the crescent, the 11-0, the crescent, and the first demi, which I'm just going to go past for a second and then I'll come out. Just my needle just wanted to go through the second one, but you want to go through this one. So you're always going through the demi that's on either side of the crescent bead. So you're just going to repeat that all the way around. Last group of 15-0, rondelle 15-0, exiting here. I'm just going to sew through the top hole of the next super duo, and then I'm just going to go on through the 15-0 and the rondelle. So that's just going to embellish everything around there. So what you want to do now is just sew all your threads in. You want to pull super tight, but tight enough so it's nice and secure. It's going to curve in a little bit, which is fine. And then you could just, sew and put in a couple of knots and sew your thread in. Let's get a bail on this cutie. So I'm holding my piece so that my crescent beads are up this way. This is what the bezel looks like. So I've threaded my needle with a couple, 3 feet of thread, because we're going to do herringbone as part of the bail. So I want to make sure it all, we have enough thread. I put on a stop bead, left a tail to sew in. I'm going to use these two rondelles right here for my connection. So I've sewn through the rondelle right there. Next, I picked up one of the Toho 11-0s, 3 super duos, and a Toho 11-0. I'm just going to sew through this rondelle on the other side. So that's going to sort of place it on like so. That's what it looks like. So I'm just going to turn my piece around to the back because we want to work around the back now. Okay, so I'm exiting this rondelle. I'm going to pick up one of my bugle beads. Exiting here, I'm going to sew through this demi round right here. Then I'm going to pick up 3 of my Toho 11-0s. I'm going to sew through the demi round on the other side. So just, let's see, where am I? There I am. Okay. Right here. That's going to kind of pull it in the back a little bit, and that's what you want. And then I'm going to pick up one of my bugle beads, and I'm going to sew through the rondelle on the other side. Give that a little pull like that. So this is what it looks like on the back. And what I do at this point is sew in your tail thread, because that way you don't have to keep pulling it to tighten it, and then we'll continue on the front. So my back thread in, my tail thread, and that makes it so much easier. And I've turned, so this is what it looks like. We're exiting that rondelle right there. I'm just going to turn my piece to the front, and I'm going to sew through the next Toho 11-0 and the bottom hole of the 3 super duos, like that. Then I'm going to pick up 3 15-0s. I'm going to sew the top through the top hole of that super duo. I'm going to pick up a Toho 11-0. I'm going to sew through the next super duo, picking up a Toho 11-0, sewing through the next super duo, and then I'm going to pick up my 3 15-0s. So just repeating what I did on the other side, and I'm going to sew through this super duo right here. And you just can go on through the next super duo, bottom hole of all the super duos. So we're going around in a circle, and then come up the 3 15-0s, and you can exit the super duo. Okay, so I'm exiting the super duo right here. I'm going to sew right on through to that 11-0 right there. Okay, so I've switched over to Miyuki 11-0s because I like the way it looks when you have the bigger bead here. Even though this is an 11-0, it's a Toho, and it's a different shape. See that? It's like totally different. So I'm picking up 2 of my Miyuki 11-0s. You can continue on with the Toho. And I'm going to sew through the Toho on the other side. And I'm just going to make sure that sits just like that in between the 2 Toho. I'm going to continue around one more time. So I'm going to go through the super duo, and then you go through the 3 15-0s, all the beads again, through these, and come out. So you're going all the way around, and you're going to come out this 11-0 at the top here. So you're just going through these, through these, through these, and then out the top 11-0. So it looks like, so I'm going to do a little herringbone now. So I'm going to pick up 2 11-0s. I'm going to come down this one, 11-0 on the other side, and then I'm going to go up these 2 on the other side. I always have trouble with this on camera. There we go. So it looks like, and you're just going to continue that. So you're going to pick up 2 11-0s, if I can get that. There we go. 2 11-0s. And I always think in my mind down 1 and then up 2. 2 11-0s, down 1, up 2. And I'm just going to continue that until I have the, a number on that is, that's going to fit whatever my ribbon, beaded chain, regular chain. So you'll just play with that until it's the right size, and then come back and we'll attach it to the back. Okay, I've got a number of herringbone stitches on that is going to fit my ribbon, bail, chain, whatever you're putting on here. And I've pulled these nice and tight. You saw me just give them another pull. I want to make sure they're nice and snug. So this is what it looks like so far. Now in the previous clip, my whole little bail part here looked like it was sort of in the front. What happened? It should be in the back like this, and yours will be. But what happened with me is when I went on this side to sew the thread in, I sewed it in, and then I used my thread burner and I burnt right through. So I had to sort of reconnect this part. It should just look just like this. All right, so let's sew this to the back. Piece around. I'm going to pick up 1 11-0, and I'm going to sew through that middle bead of the 3 Toho 11-0s I put on right there. Just going to pull it down, and then I'm going to pick up another 11-0, and I'm going to sew back up through the herringbone on the other side. So go up a few beads like that, and then when I pull, this is what it looks like. So you're attached, and then you just want to come down again, go through again, come around. You do that a couple of times till it's nice and secure, and then your bail will be completed. If you want to put the drop on, so that's how it's going to look, you're going to go to the description box and go to the video where I show you how to do this, the bezel. It's very easy. And then come on back, and then the next clip will show you how to add the drop on. Let's say you've done your bezel and you want to attach it. So I just came around and I did stitch in the ditch with some of the 11-0s, and this is what it looks like. So all I did was come out of this bead of the stitch in the ditch right here, put on a rondelle, came through this demi-round, the crescent, this 11-0, the crescent in this demi-round, put on another one of my rondelles, and I came through this bead here. And then all you're going to do here is just pull it tight like that. So, and you want to make sure that that middle bead here kind of sits in between the crescent beads, and then you're just going to sew that thread in. Here are goodies. So here's the pendant with the crystal drop, and I'll link this chain, of course, in the description box below the video along with this. Here I put a pin back on this and a filigree. So I took one of these 1-inch or 25mm filigrees and I glued it to the back of my beadwork, just like that. Now it's still wet, so I can't do any sewing, or I can't put it on anything at the moment, but you could actually sew some beads around the edge. I didn't want to, because E6000 is, you know, it's like, it holds like iron, and I used E6000 and I put a pin back on back of the filigree, so just like that. I'll let you know how that works out. Like I said, you can always add beads around it. So here it is as a pin, and then here I have it on a ribbon with some of these little, you know, spacer beads. You know, these would have been better in gold. And this is a part of a jewelry jar haul that I was in Goodwill or Savers, if you have that near you, or Salvation Army, and they have these jars of jewelry pieces, and they're usually vintage, like from the 70s. I mean, I was a teenager in the 70s, so I guess I'm vintage too. So, you know, I have a jar filled with all kinds of these like really beautiful findings, and they're so strong. I mean, they're beautiful. So you could do that, or you can get some of these findings on any bead website. Here is the bracelet. So here are all your goodies. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.